On a Friday afternoon, Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport in Atlanta buzzed like a broken beehive. The sound of flight announcements blended with hurried footsteps, rolling suitcase wheels scraping the floor, and lively conversations. The air was filled with the aroma of kiosk coffee and the breath of anticipation. In the middle of the crowd stood Maya Jackson, a 25-year-old Black American woman, on tiptoe, trying to peer over the sea of people to find her brother, Marcus. Her naturally curly hair was tied up high. A few strands fell across her forehead, and her bright brown eyes sparkled excitedly. She wore a simple navy blue t-shirt and jeans, an old backpack slung over one shoulder, but the radiant smile on her face made her stand out among the unfamiliar faces. Marcus, Maya's older brother, had been away on a business trip in Seattle for 3 months, working for a tech startup. He returned today, and Maya couldn't contain her joy. She had counted the days, the hours, imagining throwing her arms around him and telling him everything that had happened while he was gone. From the time she got scolded by her boss at the airport cafe for spilling a latte to the nights she spent writing plans to reopen their family's restaurant in an old notebook. "He's going to laugh out loud when he hears about the latte," Maya muttered, smiling to herself. She stretched up higher, squinting through the crowd. In the distance, near Gate 12, a tall figure emerged. He had golden hair that shimmered under the airport lights, broad shoulders beneath a dark jacket, and a confident stride. "That's Marcus!" Maya exclaimed inwardly, heart pounding. Without another thought, she weaved through the crowd, skillfully dodging suitcases and travelers engrossed in their phones. She almost broke into a run, her smile widening, and when just a few steps remained, she leaped forward, arms wide, and hugged the man tightly. "Marcus, I missed you so much," Maya cried out, her voice choked with emotion. She buried her face in his chest, soaking in the familiar warmth. But then, a strange feeling crept in. This body was too firm, unlike Marcus, who always complained about skipping the gym. And the scent wasn't the cheap cologne Marcus usually wore, but a rich, woody fragrance mixed with a hint of mint, elegant and refined. Maya froze. Her heart still raced, but now from panic. She slowly looked up, and the world seemed to stop. Sharp blue eyes, like a stormy sky, looked down at her. This man was not Marcus. He was taller, with a chiseled face, high nose, and thin lips curved into an amused smile. His tailored charcoal suit hugged his frame perfectly, exuding power and wealth. He looked like he'd just stepped out of a fashion magazine, and his eyes locked onto hers with a mix of curiosity and humor. "Oh my God!" Maya yelped, jumping back so fast she nearly tripped over a suitcase behind her. Her face burned as if she'd been thrown into a furnace. "I'm so sorry. I mistook you." "Oh, no, I am sorry." She waved her hands wildly, trying to explain, but her words came out jumbled. "I thought you were my brother. He's also tall, has hair, and I couldn't see clearly." The man remained still, one hand in his pocket, raising an eyebrow. "Do you often hug strangers like this?" he asked, his voice deep and smooth with a hint of a southern drawl. "Or am I special?" Maya wanted to dig a hole and crawl in. "No, I don't. I didn't mean to." She took a deep breath, trying to regain composure. "I'm just emotionally blind, okay? When I get too excited, I can't see who's who. It's the adrenaline's fault." He chuckled, a low, warm sound that made a few people nearby turn their heads. "Emotionally blind," he repeated, as if savoring the phrase. "Interesting. So what did you see when you ran into me? The ideal older brother?" Maya glared at him, though her heart still pounded. I saw a tall guy with blonde hair and… whatever, you get the point. She folded her arms, trying to appear confident, but his sharp and amused gaze made her feel exposed. Look, I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean to invade your personal space or anything. He tilted his head, still smiling. My personal space has no complaints. It's intriguing. He stepped a little closer, and Maya instinctively stepped back, bumping into a passerby. What's your name? Maya blinked, caught off guard by the question. Why do you need to know my name? I just hugged you by mistake and did not sign up to be friends. She replied with a hint of sarcasm. But as her eyes swept over him, she realized he wasn't ordinary. The suit, the sparkling watch on his wrist, and how he stood, confident, almost commanding, told her he belonged to a different world. A world she, with her cafe job and worn-out sneakers, didn't belong to. Because I'm curious, he said, gently but firmly. I'm Ethan Caldwell. He extended his hand, as if this were an ordinary introduction and not the aftermath of a mistaken hug. Maya hesitated, then shook his hand, feeling the warmth and strength of his grip envelop hers. Maya, she said, her voice quieter than she intended. Maya Jackson. She pulled her hand back quickly, as if afraid of being drawn into something. And now I must find my real brother. Have a nice day. She turned to flee the embarrassing moment, but his voice called out from behind, making her freeze. Maya. She looked back, seeing him still standing there, his gaze fixed on her. Are you sure you don't want one more hug? I would like to confirm that you have the right guy this time. Her mouth fell open, and then she burst into laughter despite herself. You're such an idiot, she said, shaking her head. No, thank you. One mistaken hug is enough. She quickly disappeared into the crowd, heart racing, but no longer from embarrassment. Something in Ethan's smile, in the way he looked at her, made her feel different. As if she had accidentally opened a door she wasn't sure she wanted to walk through. Behind her, Ethan watched Maya's small frame until she vanished. A tall man in a black suit stepped up beside him. Mr. Caldwell, is everything all right? The man asked, his voice serious and eyes cautious, as he glanced in the direction Maya had gone. Ethan smiled, a rare, genuine smile. All right, he said, his voice low. Better than all right. He turned away, but in his mind, the name Maya Jackson had already been etched, along with the radiant smile and the unexpected hug that had shaken his tightly controlled world. Monday morning at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport was as bustling as usual. The coffee grinder roared inside Java Jet Cafe, where Maya Jackson was wiping down the counter with the speed of someone who had done it thousands of times. Her navy blue apron was stained with a few coffee marks, and her curly hair was tied high to keep it out of her eyes. Her brown eyes scanned the line of waiting customers, rushed business people, families dragging suitcases, and tired travelers. Working at the coffee shop wasn't Maya's dream job. Still, it helped her pay rent and support Marcus, her older brother, who was in his final year studying engineering at the University of Georgia. Maya had tried not to think about the mistaken hug on Friday, but the image of Ethan Caldwell, with his sharp blue eyes and half-smile, still lingered in her mind. Just a rich guy who likes to joke, she told herself, shaking her head to banish the thought. She didn't have time for fantasies. But as she was pouring coffee for a picky customer, a deep, warm voice rose from across the counter, making her jump. Mistaken hug, girl. I'd like an Americano. No sugar, please. Maya looked up, and her heart skipped a beat. Ethan Caldwell stood there, leaning casually against the counter, looking like he'd just stepped out of a board meeting. A navy blue suit hugged his frame. His blonde hair was neatly styled, and his gaze locked onto her, shimmering with amusement. He looked taller than she remembered. Or maybe it was just how he seemed to command space, as if the whole world revolved around him. You. Maya inhaled sharply, trying to keep her voice steady. What are you doing here? She crossed her arms, one eyebrow raised, though the corners of her mouth twitched as if resisting a smile. Ethan smiled so effortlessly that a few nearby customers turned to look. Having coffee. Or did you think I flew from New York to Atlanta to see you? He tilted his head with a teasing tone, but his eyes were more serious than she expected. Maya narrowed her eyes at him, returning to the espresso machine to hide her warming face. Don't be so smug, fancy suit guy. This is an airport, not your stage. She started brewing the coffee, her movements quick, but she could feel Ethan's gaze following her every move. Then why do you still remember me as a fancy suit guy? Ethan replied, his voice light but edged with the challenge. I bet you thought about that hug all weekend. Maya nearly spilled the coffee. She turned around and placed the Americano on the counter with a mock-annoyed glare. Look, I've got a ton of work to do, and teasing customers isn't on the list. Here's your drink. $4. Ethan pulled a leather wallet from his jacket, took out a 20, and slid it toward her. Keep the change. And I'm not teasing. I'm just curious about you. Maya frowned and pushed the bill back. I don't take flashy tips. And curious about what, exactly? I'm just a barista. Nothing special. She said it, but her voice wavered slightly. Something in the way Ethan looked at her. Not pity, not shallow flirtation, but genuine attention, made her feel exposed. Ethan didn't take this money back. Instead, he sat down on the high stool by the counter, took a sip of the coffee and said, You're wrong. People don't run up and hug strangers with that kind of radiant look if they're not special. You made me feel like a regular person, Maya. That's rare. Maya blinked, surprised by his honesty. She opened her mouth to reply, but a sharp voice cut in. Jackson, what are you doing standing there chatting? Mr. Harris, the cafe manager, emerged from the back office, his gaze as sharp as a knife. He was a middle-aged man, constantly irritable toward Maya because she often pushed back against his unreasonable demands. Maya stiffened, turning to face him. I was serving a customer, sir, she said calmly but tensely. She could feel Ethan's eyes on her, which only made her more flustered. Mr. Harris glanced at Ethan, noticing the expensive suit and sparkling watch. His demeanor shifted instantly to one of flattery. My apologies for the inconvenience, sir. I'll make sure she moves faster. He turned back to Maya, voice low but sharp. Please don't make me repeat myself. Get back to work. Maya clenched her jaw, nodding, but Ethan spoke before she could turn away. His voice was low and commanding. I'd like her to continue serving me. She's doing an excellent job. He looked Mr. Harris directly in the eye, unwavering. Is that not a problem? Mr. Harris blinked, clearly caught off guard. Of course. Not, sir, he mumbled, then quickly backed off, not forgetting to shoot Maya a glare. Maya stood there, feeling both grateful and worried. Ethan had just defended her, but she knew the cost. Mr. Harris wouldn't let it slide. She turned to Ethan, voice quiet. You didn't have to do that. I can handle him. Ethan shrugged, taking another sip. I know, but I didn't like the way he spoke to you. And he paused, his eyes softening. I wanted to talk to you a little more. Maya folded her arms, trying to hide the smile that threatened to escape. Don't you have better things to do? Like run a company or, I don't know, should I buy an island or something? Ethan laughed, a warm, deep sound that again drew attention from nearby customers. I have a dozen things to do, but none are as interesting as watching you pretend not to like me. Pretend? Maya glared at him, but the corner of her mouth curved. "You're too confident, Caldwell. Careful, you might fall hard." "Worth the risk," Ethan replied, eyes glinting. He stood up, leaving his half-finished coffee on the counter. "I'll be back, Maya. And next time, I want to know more about you, not just the mistaken hug girl." She watched him walk away, confident but not arrogant. When he vanished into the crowd, Maya shook her head, muttering, "This guy's trouble." But deep down, she felt a slight tremor, an emotion she wasn't sure she wanted to admit. Ethan Caldwell wasn't like any customer she had met. He didn't look at her like a barista, but like someone worth discovering. And that, though she didn't want to admit it, made her curious and scared. In the distance, Ethan stepped into a waiting black SUV, a bodyguard opening the door. He sat down, looking through the airport window, and a rare, genuine smile appeared. With her honesty and the fire in her eyes, Maya Jackson had made him feel something he hadn't felt in boardrooms or luxurious mansions, aliveness. And he knew he would come back. Maya Jackson's small apartment sat on the third floor of an old building in West Atlanta, where the scent of baked cornbread from a neighbor's kitchen mingled with the sound of honking cars from the street below. After a long shift at the airport café, Maya stepped inside, her worn-out sneakers brushing across the frayed carpet. She dropped her backpack to the floor and took a deep breath, trying to shake off the fatigue. The warm yellow light from an old desk lamp spilled onto the wall, which was covered with family photos. Her parents grinning in front of Jackson's Soul restaurant, a young Marcus with a crooked baseball cap, and Maya in high school, holding a trophy from the school's dance team. These photos were reminders of a happy time, before everything fell apart. Maya took off her apron, tossed it onto a chair, and walked into the small kitchen. She grabbed a glass of water and leaned against the sink, her eyes drifting out the window. The mistaken hug with Ethan Caldwell and their unexpected reunion at the cafe today still hovered in her mind. With his expensive suit and confident smile, he belonged to a world she couldn't reach. But how he looked at her as if she were a puzzle he wanted to solve made her curious and uneasy. "Forget about that guy, Maya," she muttered, shaking her head. "You don't have time for stupid romantic distractions." She walked over to the dining table, where an old leather-bound notebook lay between stacks of bills and Marcus's engineering textbooks. The notebook was her most treasured keepsake from her mother, Angela, who once ran Jackson's Soul with a burning passion. Maya opened it, flipping through the yellowed pages of recipes. Crispy fried chicken, honey cornbread, black-eyed peas stewed with smoked meat. Small notes accompanied each recipe in her mother's slanted handwriting. Add a pinch of chili for an extra kick, or sing while mixing the batter. It makes the cake better. Maya smiled, but the smile quickly faded as she remembered the day the restaurant closed. 10 years ago, when Maya was just 15, a large real estate company bought out the neighborhood where the restaurant stood, driving the rent sky high. Her parents, James and Angela, fought to keep the restaurant, not just a source of income, but the heart of their community. They hosted birthday parties, donated food to people experiencing homelessness, and taught neighborhood kids how to bake cookies. But as bills piled up, they were forced to sell. Her father died of a heart attack 2 years later, and her mother never fully recovered. Maya still remembered the empty look in her mother's eyes when she said, "We lost our dream, Maya." Since then, Maya has sworn to reopen Jackson's Soul to honor her parents and prove she can rise above fate. She learned to manage finances, scribbled business plans into the notebook, and saved every penny from her cafe job. But the reality was harsh. Her money was barely enough to cover rent and support Marcus's college tuition. The dream of reopening the restaurant felt distant, like a star shining just out of reach. The apartment door swung open, snapping Maya out of her thoughts. Marcus walked in, his heavy backpack slung over one shoulder, his short curly hair damp with sweat. At 21, he was a full head taller than Maya, but still had that boyish grin that made her want to pinch his cheek. "Hey, sis," he called out, dropping his bag to the floor. "Rough day? Did the boss yell at you again?" Maya gave him a look, but the corner of her mouth lifted. "Something like that. What about you? Ditch class to play basketball again?" She pointed at his sweat-drenched jersey. Marcus laughed and grabbed a soda from the fridge. "No, I was studying hard, I swear. But—" He sat across from her, eyes twinkling. "Tell me about the fancy suit guy at the airport. Did you survive hugging the wrong man?" Maya's face flushed, and she threw a dish towel at him. "Where did you hear that?" "It didn't happen." But when Marcus raised an eyebrow, she sighed and recounted the story of the mistaken hug with Ethan and today's encounter at the café. She tried to keep her tone casual, but Marcus noticed the sparkle in her eyes. "He's into you," Marcus declared, taking a sip of soda. "A billionaire, fancy suit. And he defended you in front of your boss? He's interested." Maya shook her head and closed the notebook. "Don't get carried away, Marcus. He's just killing time. Guys like him don't notice girls like me." Her voice dropped slightly. "I'm a barista. He could buy the whole airport if he wanted to." Marcus frowned, setting the soda down. "Hey, don't say that. You're Maya Jackson, the most stubborn person I know. You raised me, paid my tuition, and still dream about that restaurant." He pointed to the notebook. "If that billionaire can't see how amazing you are, then he's the crazy one." Maya smiled, but her heart felt heavy. She knew Marcus was trying to encourage her, but she felt stuck. Each passing day made the dream of reopening Jackson's soul seem further away. She looked at the notebook, her fingers brushing over her mother's writing. Cooking is a way of loving. She wondered if she had the strength to make the dream real, or if she'd always be a barista, caught between coffee cups and overdue bills. "Sis," Marcus said, his voice more serious now, "I know you're tired, but you can't give up, okay? Mom and Dad would be proud of you, and so am I." He reached out and held her hand, squeezing it gently. "Open that restaurant. I'll help, even if it's just doing the dishes." Maya laughed, her eyes misty. "You could break all the dishes." She stood up and hugged him from behind. "Thanks, kid. I'll try, okay?" After Marcus went to shower, Maya sat back down with the notebook. She picked up a pen and added a new line to her plan. Find a way to save an extra $500 a month. She knew it would be tough, but Marcus's trusting eyes and the memory of her parents gave her no choice but to keep going. She closed the notebook, stood up, and looked out the window. Somewhere out there, Ethan Caldwell might be in his world of luxury, but here, in this small apartment, Maya was fighting for her dream. And she swore she wouldn't let anyone, not even a billionaire with a charming smile, steer her off course. The sun slowly dipped beyond the horizon in West Atlanta, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange that reflected off the gleaming glass windows of Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. Inside the Java Jet Cafe, Maya Jackson wiped down the counter one last time before ending her shift. Her navy blue apron was frayed at the edges, and her worn-out sneakers clacked softly against the floor. She let out a long yawn, trying to shake off the exhaustion after dealing with demanding customers and the scrutinizing stares of Mr. Harris, the cafe manager. But in her mind, a thought crept in uninvited. Ethan Caldwell. The billionaire with the half-smile and piercing blue eyes seemed to see right through her. He hadn't shown up at the cafe since their encounter on Monday, and Maya told herself that was for the best. She didn't need someone like him disrupting an already complicated life. She untied her apron, hung it on the hook behind the counter, and was about to leave when a deep voice called from the entrance. "Maya Jackson, were you planning to leave without saying goodbye?" Maya turned around, her heart skipping a beat. Ethan Caldwell stood leaning against the doorway, looking like he had just stepped out of a magazine photo shoot. His light gray suit fit him perfectly. His golden hair gleamed under the lights, and his blue eyes sparkled with amusement mixed with something more profound. He looked confident and relaxed, one hand in his pocket, as if this cafe was his home turf. "What are you doing here again?" Maya asked, folding her arms to hide her unease. "The cafe's closed, and I don't make coffee after hours." She tried to keep her tone light, but Ethan's gaze made her feel like she was being pulled into a conversation she wasn't ready for. Ethan smiled and stepped inside, his polished leather shoes clicking softly on the floor. "I didn't come for coffee. I came to invite you to dinner." He said it, his voice deep and steady, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Maya blinked, her mouth slightly open. "Dinner? With you?" She laughed, but it sounded more dry than she intended. "Look, Caldwell, I don't know what game you're playing, but I'm not the type of woman you kill time with." Ethan tilted his head, eyes never leaving hers. "It's not a game, Maya. I want to talk to you, genuinely, one dinner. No pressure, no expectations, just you and me." He paused, his tone softening. "You make me feel like a normal person, not a billionaire surrounded by flattery. That's why I'm here." His words made Maya pause. She looked at him, searching for any sign of insincerity, but all she saw was honesty in those blue eyes. She drew a deep breath, her mind spinning. Part of her wanted to say yes, to be swept up in Ethan's charm and the idea of one evening away from reality. But another part, a stronger one, reminded her of the difference between them. She was a black waitress living in a cramped apartment, struggling with bills. He was a white billionaire who could buy the world if he wanted. And then there were the stares, the whispers she knew would follow if she stepped into his world. "You don't understand," Maya said quietly. "We're from different worlds. You can walk in here and ask me to dinner, but I don't belong in fancy restaurants or that kind of conversation. She stopped, gripping the strap of her backpack. "I don't want to be seen as someone who doesn't fit." Ethan stepped closer, not invading her space, but enough that she could feel his presence. "Maya," he said, voice gentle but firm. "I'm not asking you to feel out of place. I'm asking because I want to know you. The woman who ran up and hugged me at the airport, who made me laugh, who isn't afraid to glare at me when I act smug. If you're worried about people staring, let them stare, but don't let that stop you from living." Maya bit her lip, torn. She thought of Marcus, who would scream excitedly if he knew his sister was invited to dinner by a billionaire. She thought of her mother's recipe notebook, urging her to be brave. And then she thought of herself, the girl who always fought to prove her worth. "You don't give up, do you?" she asked, the corner of her mouth curving upward. "Not when I see something worth chasing," Ethan replied, eyes gleaming. Maya sighed, shaking her head as if not believing herself. "All right, one dinner. But if you take me somewhere, a glass of water costs more than my weekly paycheck, and I'm leaving." Ethan laughed, a warm, deep sound that made her smile despite herself. "Deal. 8 o'clock tonight. I'll pick you up. Wear whatever you like. Just be yourself." At 8 o'clock, Maya stood in front of the mirror in her apartment, wearing a simple black dress that Marcus had insisted makes you look like a star. She smoothed down her curls, feeling like her stomach was doing backflips. When Ethan showed up in a sleek black SUV at her door, she almost changed her mind. But his eyes, warm and sincere, made her step into the car. The restaurant Ethan chose wasn't the luxurious kind she had feared. It was a cozy spot in Midtown, with soft golden lights and the subtle scent of herbs in the air. Their table was by the window, overlooking a lively street. Maya sat across from Ethan, trying not to focus on how he looked at her, like she was the only person in the room. They talked, and to her surprise, Maya found herself relaxing. Ethan told her about his childhood in Savannah, growing up in a wealthy but cold household, constantly pressured to be perfect. "I learned how to run a company by the time I was 18, he said, his voice tinged with sadness. "But sometimes, I want to be a regular guy, eating cornbread and watching basketball." Maya laughed and told him about the days she and Marcus would sneak cookies from their mother's kitchen and how she dreamed of reopening Jackson's soul. However, tension rose when an older couple at the nearby table gave Maya a judgmental look. The woman whispered something to her husband, and Maya felt heat rush to her face. She knew that look, the silent judgment cast on a black woman dining with a wealthy white man. She clenched her napkin, her voice quieter. "Do you ever think we look strange sitting here like this?" Ethan looked at her, his gaze hardening as he understood what she meant. He reached across the table and took her hand, his fingers warm and steady. "Maya," he said, his voice low, "you're the most remarkable person in this room. If they can't see that, it's their problem, not ours." Maya looked at his hand, warmth blooming in her chest. She didn't pull away. At that moment, she realized Ethan wasn't just a billionaire. He saw her, which both scared her and gave her hope. Wednesday morning in Atlanta carried a heavy humidity and gray, brooding clouds. Maya Jackson stepped into Java Jet Cafe, her brown eyes tired from lack of sleep. The navy blue apron tied around her waist was frayed and worn, and her curly hair was tied up high to keep it out of her face. Last night, she had stayed up late revisiting her mother's recipe book, jotting down a few new ideas for the dream restaurant she hoped to reopen, Jackson's Soul. But that dream was overshadowed by a greater worry. Marcus, her younger brother, had been complaining about persistent stomach pain all week. He was usually so healthy that Maya had tried to convince herself it was just exam stress. But deep down, a sense of unease was growing. The cafe was busy with hurried customers, and Maya moved like a machine, making coffee, wiping counters, smiling at people who didn't bother to say thank you. She tried not to think about Ethan Caldwell, the man who had left her flustered after dinner in Midtown last week. His hand in hers, his sincere gaze, and how he had defended her against those judgmental stares still made her heart race. But she reminded herself, Ethan belonged to a different world, and she had no time for unrealistic feelings. Midway through her shift, Maya's phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced over at Mr. Harris, the manager, who was busy checking records, then stealthily pulled out her phone. A message from Marcus. "Sis, I'm in pain. At Piedmont Hospital now." Maya's heart stopped. She rushed over to request leave, ignoring Mr. Harris's irritated look, and bolted out of the cafe, grabbing a taxi to the hospital. In the emergency room, she found Marcus lying on a bed, his face pale, hands clutching his stomach. She held his hand, trying to sound calm. "Hey, kid, are you okay? What's going on?" Marcus gave a weak smile, but pain etched deep lines into his face. "I probably ate something bad, or something. Don't worry, sis." The doctor, a stern-looking middle-aged woman, walked in with a clipboard. "Miss Jackson, your brother is suffering from acute kidney failure. We need to operate immediately to prevent further damage, but the cost is significant." She handed Maya a figure, $80,000. The ground felt like it gave way beneath her. She had only $3,000 in savings, most of it for Marcus's college tuition. She said I'll find a way, her voice trembling, though she had no idea where to begin. She brought Marcus home once his condition was temporarily stabilized, but her mind kept spiraling. She sat by his bed, watching him sleep, and helplessness washed over her. She couldn't lose Marcus, the only family she had left, the one person who had always believed in her. But how could she come up with that kind of money? Bank loan? Sell the apartment? None of those were real options. As Maya was washing dishes in the kitchen that night, her phone rang. It was Ethan. She hesitated, but desperation made her answer. Maya? His voice was low and filled with concern. I just finished a meeting here in Atlanta. I wanted to see you. Are you okay? Maya bit her lip, tears threatening to fall. She didn't want to break down before him, but the words poured out before she could stop them. No, I'm not okay. Marcus, my brother, he's sick, needs surgery, but I don't have the money. Her voice cracked, and she hated herself for it. There was silence on the other end, and then Ethan spoke, steady, resolute. I'll help. Please send me the hospital details. I'll take care of the cost. Maya froze, pride rising inside her. No, Ethan, I can't accept your money. I'm not someone looking for charity. This isn't charity, Ethan replied, his voice calm but firm. I'm offering because I care about you. But if it makes it easier, think of it as a deal. You cook for me for 1 week at my house, 3 meals a day. I'll pay you enough to cover Marcus's surgery. Deal? Maya clutched the phone, torn between her pride and her love for Marcus. She thought of his trusting eyes, of her parents' dream, and finally whispered, Okay, thank you. The next day, Maya stood before a high-rise building in Buckhead, where Ethan lived. His penthouse was another world entirely. Polished hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city of Atlanta, and minimalist yet luxurious furnishings. Ethan greeted her in a rolled-up dress shirt, looking more relaxed than usual. Welcome to my kitchen, he said, gesturing toward a sleek, modern kitchen with double ovens and a gleaming set of knives. You can make whatever you like. I'm not picky. Maya placed her grocery bag on the counter, trying not to feel overwhelmed. She'd brought familiar ingredients: cornmeal, black-eyed peas, and spices from her mother's recipes. You've never used this kitchen, have you? She asked, raising an eyebrow at the nearly empty fridge. Ethan chuckled, leaning against the counter. I may have made a sandwich once, but I trust you'll turn this place into magic. Maya began to cook, crispy fried chicken and honey cornbread. The aroma filled the air, and Ethan stayed and watched her instead of leaving. This smell reminds me of home, he said quietly, voice tinged with nostalgia. My mom used to bake cornbread, but she passed when I was little. My dad was too busy to cook. Maya glanced at him, surprised by the vulnerability. I lost both my parents too, she replied softly. But my mom left behind her recipes, and every time I cook, I feel like she's still here. She placed the plate in front of him, and when Ethan took a bite of the chicken, his eyes lit up. Oh my God, Maya, you need to open a restaurant. Seriously. She smiled, but her heart felt heavy. I want to, but it's not that easy. She told him about Jackson's soul, about the dream cut short by bankruptcy. Ethan listened without interruption, and for the first time, Maya felt that he wasn't just a billionaire. He was someone who understood her pain. As she prepared to leave, Ethan gently took her hand. Thank you for the meal and for trusting me. Marcus will be okay, I promise. Maya nodded, her heart pounding, unsure if it was gratitude or something more profound. Saturday afternoon in Atlanta brought a refreshing breeze that swept away the early summer humidity. Maya Jackson stood in the small kitchen of her apartment, mixing cornbread batter in an old metal bowl. The scent of honey and melted butter filled the air, reminding her of the days her mother, Angela, would stand by the stove singing old Southern folk songs. Maya wore a loose t-shirt and jeans, her curly hair tied back loosely with a few strands falling over her forehead. She had just returned from the hospital, where Marcus was recovering after his kidney surgery. The doctors said he would be fine soon, but the cost, covered by Ethan Caldwell, still weighed heavily on Maya's pride. She glanced at the clock. It was nearly 5 in the evening. Today, she and Marcus had been invited to Ethan's apartment in Buckhead as a thank you. Maya had hesitated. She didn't want to bring Marcus into Ethan's luxurious world. But Marcus insisted, "Sis, I want to meet the billionaire who saved me. And I'm curious. Maybe his place looks like a Hollywood movie." His excitement made Maya laugh, and she agreed, though she still felt nervous about stepping deeper into Ethan's life. When the taxi pulled up in front of Ethan's skyscraper, Maya and Marcus looked at the glass windows glittering in the golden hour light. Marcus whistled, eyes wide. "Dang, this guy's legit! They probably got gold bars in the bathroom." Maya shot him a glare, though her lips curved into a smile. "Behave yourself, kid. Please don't embarrass me." Ethan's penthouse opened into another world, a spacious interior with polished wooden floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Atlanta skyline, and sleek, minimalist decor. Ethan greeted them in a white rolled-up dress shirt and slacks, looking more relaxed than usual. "Hi, Maya, Marcus," he said with a warm smile. "Thanks for coming. I hope you're hungry. I've prepared a little something." Maya raised an eyebrow, exchanging a glance with Marcus. "You cooked? I thought you didn't know how." She stepped inside, carrying a box of homemade biscuits, her thank you gift, made using her mother's recipe. Ethan chuckled and gestured to the kitchen corner, where several dishes were already plated: grilled meat, salad, and mashed potatoes. "Okay, I'll admit, my chef helped, but I made the iced tea myself. That counts as progress, right?" Marcus laughed and patted Ethan on the shoulder like an old friend. "Points for effort, man. But let's see if it beats my sister's biscuits." Maya blushed and shot Marcus a warning look, but Ethan only smiled and led them to the back patio, a small terrace with a wooden table and string lights twinkling above. They sat down, and the mood quickly grew warm and familiar. Maya placed the plate of biscuits on the table, and when Ethan took a bite, his eyes lit up. "Maya, this is incredible. Where'd you learn to make this?" She smiled, her voice tinged with nostalgia. "From my mom. She used to say biscuits could make people smile, no matter how bad their day was." She shared stories about Jackson's soul, about busy winter nights when customers lined up for her mother's fried chicken and black-eyed peas. Marcus chimed in with a story about when he spilled an entire tray of cornbread in front of the customers, making the whole restaurant laugh. Ethan listened closely, his gaze soft, and for the first time, Maya felt he wasn't just curious about her. He genuinely wanted to understand her world. After dinner, Ethan suggested a basketball game on the small court in the back. Marcus, a basketball fanatic, eagerly agreed. Maya sat on a bench, watching Ethan and Marcus play, their laughter echoing through the yard. She was surprised to see Ethan, though slightly clumsy, trying to keep up with Marcus. When Marcus sank a three-pointer, he shouted, "Sis, this guy's not bad. I might accept him as my brother-in-law." Maya's cheeks flushed, and she tossed a napkin at him, but Ethan only laughed, his eyes lingering on her with meaning. They returned to the table as night fell, sipping iced tea under the soft lights. Now relaxed, Marcus looked at Ethan and asked seriously, Hey, Mr. Caldwell, why do you like my sister? Just 'cause she hugged you by accident? Or because she's different? Maya tensed, ready to kick Marcus under the table, but Ethan hesitantly answered. Your sister reminds me that life isn't just about money or status, he said, eyes locked on Maya. She's got fire in her eyes, a kind of determination I rarely see, and she makes me want to be better. His words silenced Maya. She looked down at her glass of tea, her heart thudding. Marcus nodded, seemingly satisfied, then stood up. I'm gonna grab more biscuits. You two, chat. He winked and disappeared, leaving Maya and Ethan alone in the quiet. Ethan leaned closer, voice low. I meant what I said, Maya. You're not just the woman who hugged me by mistake. You're the one who made me want to stop and live, not just exist. Maya bit her lip, torn between warmth and fear. Ethan, you don't get it. We're too different. You live here. She gestured toward the penthouse. And I live in a place where water leaks from the ceiling when it rains. Doesn't that seem strange to you? Ethan took her hand, gentle but steady. What I see is a woman fighting for her family and her dream. That's not strange. That's what makes me unable to look away. Maya looked at his hand, feeling the wall between them begin to thin. She didn't say anything, but for the first time, she didn't pull away. When Marcus returned with the biscuit plate, he grinned. Okay, you two can stop holding hands now. I'm here for seconds. All three of them laughed, and at that moment, Maya felt a kind of connection she had never experienced before, not just with Ethan, but with the possibility that maybe, just maybe, she could let him step into her world. A light rain fell over the streets of Atlanta, casting a soft mist across the windows of Java Jet Café. Maya Jackson stood behind the counter, making a latte for a customer, though her mind was elsewhere. Her navy apron was stained with coffee spots, and her curly hair was tied up to stay out of her face. It had been a week since that evening at Ethan Caldwell's apartment, where she, Marcus, and Ethan had laughed together like a small family. That warmth still made her heart race, but it also scared her. Ethan, with his sincere blue eyes and charming smile, was gradually becoming a part of her life. But she couldn't help wondering, what did a billionaire like him want with someone like her? The cafe was busier than usual, and Maya moved at a practiced speed. Marcus had recovered well after his kidney surgery and returned to college, which relieved her greatly. But her pride still ached whenever she thought of the hospital bill Ethan had paid. As agreed, she had cooked for him every day that week, but the feeling of debt still weighed heavily on her. She was determined to repay him somehow, even if it meant doing it one small dollar at a time. A coworker named Tanya walked over to the counter, holding her phone among the crowd of customers. Tanya, an older black woman with a warm smile, often shared stories about her family with Maya. Hey Maya, Tanya said in a low voice. Did you hear the news about the old West End neighborhood? They just uncovered documents about the buyout 10 years ago. It turns out Caldwell Enterprises was behind it. Maya froze, almost dropping the latte. Caldwell Enterprises? She asked, her voice shaky. You mean Ethan Caldwell's company? Tanya nodded, scrolling on her phone. That's right. They bought the neighborhood, raised the rent, and drove dozens of small businesses into bankruptcy. That included your family's place, didn't it? Jackson Soul? Tanya looked at Maya with sympathy. I remember your mom, Angela. She once fed me for free when I lost my job. I never imagined Ethan Caldwell was involved. Maya felt the blood drain from her face. She gripped the counter for balance as memories rushed back like a flood. 10 years ago, Jackson's Soul, the pride of her parents, had collapsed when the rent tripled overnight. Her father, James, had worked to keep it afloat, but they had lost everything. He died of a heart attack 2 years later, and her mother, Angela, never recovered. Maya, only 15 at the time, had vowed to reopen the restaurant in their honor. And now, she had just learned that Ethan's company, the man she had begun to trust, was behind that pain. "Are you okay, Maya?" Tanya asked, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Maya nodded, though her voice caught in her throat. I'm fine. Thanks for telling me." She turned back to her work, but her thoughts were in turmoil. Did Ethan know? Had he kept it from her? Or was all this just some elaborate game, a bored billionaire toying with a poor girl for amusement? After her shift, Maya didn't go home. She took a taxi straight to Ethan's building in Buckhead, her anger and hurt pushing each step forward. The rain had grown heavier, soaking through her coat, but she didn't care. The doorman recognized her when she arrived and allowed her up to the private elevator. The penthouse doors opened, and Ethan stood there, sleeves rolled up, an expression of surprise. "Maya, you're soaked. Come in. Did you know?" Maya cut him off, her voice cold and sharp. She stood at the threshold, rain dripping from her clothes onto the floor. "About my family's restaurant, Jackson's Soul. Did you know your company destroyed it?" Ethan froze, his blue eyes flickering with confusion. "Maya, wait. Come inside. Let me explain." He stepped forward, but she raised her hand. "Please don't touch me," she shouted, tears welling in her eyes. "Just answer me, Ethan. Did you know? Or is this all some kind of twisted joke? Did you come to the cafe, take me out to dinner, pay for Marcus? Because you felt guilty? Or is this just a sport for you, messing with someone like me?" Ethan took a deep breath, his expression turning serious. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "I swear, Maya. Caldwell Enterprises makes hundreds of acquisitions every year. I don't oversee everyone. 10 years ago, I was just a 20-year-old doing whatever my father ordered. When I heard about West End, I had no idea your family's restaurant was part of it." Maya shook her head, rain mixing with tears on her face. "You didn't know, or you didn't want to know. You think money can erase everything, don't you? That restaurant was my parents' life. It was our heart. And you destroyed it." Ethan stepped closer, pain in his eyes. "Maya, listen to me. I didn't hide this from you. I didn't know about Jackson's Soul when I met you. But I promise, I'll look into it, and I'll make it right." "Make it right?" Maya laughed bitterly. "Do you think you can buy your way out of this? You don't understand, Ethan. You don't know what it feels like to lose everything." Her voice cracked. "Please don't come near me again. I don't want to see you." She turned and stepped into the elevator, leaving Ethan's face darkened with emotion. As the doors closed, Maya covered her face, tears streaming down. Her heart felt shattered. Ethan, the man who had made her laugh and hope, had become the face of her most significant loss. She didn't know how to face him again, or even herself. Inside the penthouse, Ethan stood motionless, staring at the empty doorway. He clenched his fists, fury building, at himself. He hadn't known about Jackson's Soul, but that didn't ease the guilt now crushing his chest. With her fire and radiant smile, Maya had become the most important person in his world. And now, he was on the brink of losing her. He walked over to his desk and called his assistant. "Find everything related to the West End deal from 2015, especially Jackson's Soul Restaurant. I want all the files. Now." In the days following the confrontation at Ethan Caldwell's apartment, Atlanta was wrapped in the languid air of early summer rain. Maya Jackson returned to work at Java Jet Cafe, but moved like a shadow. Her navy blue apron was stained with coffee, and her curly hair was tied high to hide her tired eyes. Every time she wiped the counter or made a latte, she saw Ethan, his blue eyes filled with pain as she walked away. She was angry at him because his corporation had destroyed Jackson's soul, her parents' dream. But deep down, she missed the moments when he made her laugh, how he played basketball with Marcus, and the warmth of his hand at that midtown restaurant. The contradiction exhausted her. Marcus, now stronger after surgery, noticed his sister's change. One evening at their apartment, while eating stewed black-eyed peas, he asked, "Sis, are you mad at Mr. Caldwell? Or are you just afraid of letting him get close?" Maya shot him a look, but her voice trembled as she replied, "It's not that simple, Marcus. He represents everything that took our world away. How can I ever trust him?" Marcus held her hand, his voice steady. "I don't know if he's sincere, but I saw the way he looks at you. Maybe he's hurting too, just like we are." His words stayed with Maya through a sleepless night. She opened her mother's recipe notebook and turned to the honey cornbread page, where her mom had written, "Forgiveness is a path to healing." But forgiving Ethan meant opening her heart again, and that terrified her. She didn't want to be hurt all over again. Meanwhile, Ethan had not stopped moving. After Maya left, he dove into the 2015 West End acquisition records. He discovered that under his father's orders, Caldwell Enterprises had bought the neighborhood to build a shopping center, raising rent prices and forcing many businesses, including Jackson's Soul, to shut down. Though he hadn't been directly involved, the guilt crushed him. Maya wasn't just someone he cared about. She had become the reason he needed to make things right, not just for her, but for himself. Ethan contacted investors and tracked down the current owners of the lot where Jackson's Soul once stood. After days of negotiation, he bought the property, paying far above market value. His assistant had warned him, "This is a risky investment." But Ethan didn't care. He drafted a deed transferring full ownership to Maya. With it, he wrote a handwritten letter. "Maya, I can't change the past, but I want you to have the chance to reclaim what was always yours. This isn't charity. This is faith. Faith in your dream. Ethan." He didn't come to the cafe. He knew she needed space. Instead, he asked Tanya, Maya's colleague, to deliver the envelope on a quiet morning. When Tanya handed it to Maya, she raised an eyebrow. "Girl, I don't know what's happening between you and this man, but he seems serious." Maya opened the envelope with trembling hands. As she read the contract, her eyes widened. Ownership of the West End lot, where Jackson's Soul once stood, was now in her name. Ethan's letter made her throat tighten. She sank into a chair behind the counter, tears spilling down her cheeks. He had repurchased the restaurant, not to show off, not to control, but to return her dream. Yet her pride screamed inside. She didn't want to owe him anything more. She brought the envelope home, laid it on the dining table, and called Marcus. "Read this," she said, voice shaking. Marcus flipped through the deed, then read Ethan's letter aloud. When he finished, he looked at his sister, eyes shining. "He didn't just give you the restaurant. He believes in you. Why not give him a chance?" Maya bit her lip, her thoughts tangled. "Marcus, I don't want to live off his kindness. I want to earn this on my own. But..." She paused, thinking of Ethan's face when she left the penthouse, how he played basketball with Marcus, and the smell of biscuits he once praised. "I'm afraid if I forgive him, I'll lose myself." Marcus gripped her hand gently. "You're stronger than you think. Forgiving doesn't mean weakness. It means you're brave enough to move forward. And you deserve happiness." His words cut through her fear like light through clouds. Maya looked at the envelope again, then thought of her mother, who had always taught her that love and forgiveness went hand in hand. She drew a long breath, then nodded. "All right," she said firmly. "I'll see him. But I need to hear it from him, face to face."
Charge.
That evening, Maya stood once again before Ethan's building. The rain had stopped, but the air was still cool. She wore an old coat and held the envelope tightly, her heart racing. The doorman recognized her, and the elevator carried her back to the penthouse. When the doors opened, Ethan stood there, sleeves rolled up, expression first startled, then hopeful. "Maya," he said softly, "you came." She stepped in and held up the envelope. "I got this," she said, voice calm but layered with emotion. "Why did you do this, Ethan? To make up for the past? Or to make me feel like I owe you?" Ethan shook his head and stepped forward, though keeping a respectful distance. "Not to make up for anything, and not to put you in debt. I did it because I believe in you. I know how much Jackson's soul meant to you. I wanted you to have the chance to rebuild it. Not for me. For you." Maya looked into his eyes, searching for any trace of manipulation, but all she found was sincerity. She took a deep breath, her voice trembling. "Ethan, that restaurant was my parents' world. Losing it meant losing them. And when I found out you were connected, I was afraid. Afraid you were just another dream that would vanish." Ethan gently took her hand. "I won't pretend to be perfect, Maya, but I promise you this. I won't let you lose another dream. If you'll let me, I want to be here, not as a billionaire, but as someone who wants to see you happy." Tears slipped down Maya's cheeks. She didn't pull her hand away. At that moment, she knew she couldn't run anymore. She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'll try, Ethan, but slowly." Ethan smiled and squeezed her hand gently. "Slow is fine. I'm not going anywhere." The Atlanta night sparkled with lights from towering buildings, but inside Ethan Caldwell's penthouse in Buckhead, only the soft glow of wall sconces lit the room. Maya Jackson stood before the large window, arms wrapped around herself for comfort. She wore a thin sweater and jeans, her natural curls hanging loose, a few strands falling over her brow. Just minutes earlier, she had arrived with the envelope containing the deed to Jackson's soul that Ethan had given back to her. Their conversation about the past, trust, and dreams had opened a door she wasn't sure she was ready to walk through. Yet when Ethan took her hand and promised to be by her side, not as a billionaire, but as someone who truly wanted her happiness, the wall between them began to thin. Ethan stood a few steps away, leaning against the kitchen counter, his blue eyes following her every move. He wore a white shirt, sleeves rolled up, looking both strong and vulnerable. "Maya," he said, voice low, "you don't have to decide anything tonight. I want you to know I'm serious. About you. About all of this." Maya turned, locking eyes with him. "I know," she replied, voice soft but steady. "But Ethan, I need to understand. What do you see in me? A waitress? A sad story? Or just a challenge?" She stepped closer, her voice trembling with emotion. "Because if I let you into my life, I need to know it's not just a game." Ethan took a deep breath, his expression serious. He moved closer, just enough for her to catch his familiar scent of wood and spice. He said, "I see a woman stronger than anyone I've ever met, never breaking eye contact. You fight for your family and dreams, even when the world tries to pull you down. You make me laugh, challenge me, and want to live honestly, for the first time in a very long time." He paused, voice softening. I can't promise it'll be easy, Maya, but I promise I'll do everything possible to be worthy of you. His words washed over her like a wave, soothing parts of her she didn't realize were still aching. She looked at him, her heart racing, and remembered her mother's words in the old recipe book. Forgiveness is love. She had hated him in the past, but now, facing the man who returned to her dream and saw her as his whole world, she no longer wanted to run. She stepped forward. There were only inches between them. Ethan, she whispered, I'm scared, but I'm tired of being afraid. Ethan said nothing. He raised a hand, gently cupping her chin, his eyes asking permission. Maya closed hers, and the world fell away when his lips touched hers. The kiss was gentle and slow, like two people discovering each other for the first time. It carried Ethan's tenderness and Maya's fire, melting into something neither had ever felt. When they finally pulled away, his forehead rested against hers, breath mingling in the quiet. So you're not running anymore? He teased, a smile in his voice, but hope in his eyes. Maya laughed, eyes glistening. I'll try, she said, firmer now. But take it slow, Caldwell. And if you drive me crazy, I'm throwing biscuits at you. Ethan chuckled. That deep, warm sound made her want to hold him again. Deal, he said, wrapping his arms around her. She leaned into his chest, hearing his steady heartbeat. And for the first time, she allowed herself to hope. The next day, Maya returned to Java Jet with a lighter heart. She wore her navy apron and made coffee for the morning rush, but her smile was brighter. When she told Marcus about the night before, he yelled, I knew it! That guy's totally into you! She rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her joy. But not everything would be easy. While wiping down the counter, a sharply dressed middle-aged man entered the café. His suit was expensive, but his eyes were cold. He introduced himself as Richard Hayes, a former advisor to Ethan at Caldwell Enterprises. Ms. Jackson, he said quietly, I'd like a word in private. Maya raised an eyebrow, guiding him to a corner table. What's this about? She asked, arms crossed, a prickling of unease rising in her chest. Hayes looked at her, his gaze sharp. I know about you and Ethan, and I'm here to warn you. His world isn't made for someone like you. Lavish galas, multi-million-dollar deals, public scrutiny. Do you think you're ready for that? He leaned in, voice colder. You're a waitress, Ms. Jackson. Ethan may be infatuated now, but he'll return to his circle, people of his class. Don't hurt yourself chasing something impossible. Maya's hands clenched. She thought of the judgmental stares at that midtown dinner, the pain of losing her family's restaurant, and Ethan's kiss the night before. She stared Hayes down. Mr. Hayes, she said coldly, I don't need you to explain Ethan's world to me. I know who I am. I'm Maya Jackson, the woman who raised her brother, held on to her family's dream, and survived things you can't imagine. If Ethan wants me, it's because of who I am, not because I'm pretending to be someone else. And unless you're here for coffee, the door's right there. Hayes blinked, clearly caught off guard by her confidence. He stood, muttering, You'll regret this. But Maya didn't look back. She returned to the counter, heart pounding, but not from fear. For the first time, she felt strong enough to face Ethan's world and all its expectations. That night, she told Ethan about Hayes over the phone. He was furious, promising to deal with it. But she stopped him. Don't, Ethan. I can handle this. And I want you to know, I'm not afraid anymore. I want to try. With you. With all of it. Ethan was silent for a moment, then said, voice warm, "You're the most incredible woman I've ever known, Maya. And I'll be right here, no matter what." Maya smiled, staring out the apartment window at the sparkling Atlanta skyline. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but with Ethan beside her, she was ready to face it. Atlanta's summer shimmered under golden sunlight, with white magnolia blossoms blooming along the city's streets. In her small apartment, Maya Jackson stood before a worn mirror, gently tying her curls, her brown eyes gleaming. She wore a simple, deep blue dress, preparing for a special evening Ethan Caldwell had promised would be unforgettable. Since their kiss in his penthouse 2 months earlier, their relationship had grown deeper. Cooking dinners together, strolling beneath Midtown streetlights, and sharing dreams of rebuilding Jackson's soul. Despite their differences in class and race, Maya had started to believe they could face anything, together. Ethan picked her up in his familiar black SUV, his warm smile making her heart race. "You look stunning, Maya," he said, opening the door for her. She gave him a mock glare, the corners of her lips lifting. "Don't flatter me, Caldwell. Where are you taking me?" Ethan only smiled mysteriously, driving toward the West End, the former site of Jackson's soul. When they stopped before the now cleared lot, Maya frowned in curiosity. Ethan took her hand and led her to a softly lit space, a small wooden table draped in white cloth, lanterns hanging above, and candlelight flickering in the dusk. "I wanted us to have dinner here," he said quietly, "where your dream began." Maya sat across from him, visibly moved. Dinner was all her favorites: crispy fried chicken, honey cornbread, and black-eyed peas, ordered from a local soul food spot. They laughed and talked, and as the moonlight shone above them, Ethan stood up, his expression suddenly serious. He got down on one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his jacket pocket and opening it to reveal a simple but elegant silver ring with a sparkling diamond. "Maya Jackson," he said, voice trembling, "I never thought I'd meet someone who'd make me want to slow down, to live honestly. You're fire, you're strength, you're everything I didn't know I needed. I can't promise you the world, but I promise to love you, respect you, and help you rebuild this dream." He gestured toward the lot. "Will you marry me?" Maya covered her mouth as tears welled up. She thought of everything: how they met by mistake at the airport, the arguments, that first kiss, and how he gave back her family's restaurant. She thought of Marcus, her parents, and herself, the girl who once feared happiness. "Ethan," she whispered, Yes, I will." Ethan smiled, slipped the ring onto her finger, and pulled her into a deep, heartfelt kiss. Cheers erupted from the shadows. Marcus and a few of Ethan's friends had been watching all along, clapping and cheering. Marcus rushed forward, hugging his sister tightly. "I knew he was the one," he shouted. Maya laughed, pinching his cheek, her heart overflowing with joy. But joy never came without challenges. News of their engagement spread fast, appearing on social media and in the press. Some articles celebrated a love that transcends barriers, but many others were cruel. One tabloid headline read, "Black waitress and white billionaire, love or opportunity?" Online comments were worse, calling Maya a gold digger or someone who didn't know her place. Each time she read them, it felt like a knife to the heart. At a charity gala in downtown Atlanta that Ethan invited her to, Maya faced prejudice head-on. Wearing a sleek red dress, she stood beside him in a glamorous ballroom, but felt the cold eyes of Atlanta's elite. One older woman, Evelyn Thornton, wife of one of Ethan's business partners, approached with a tight-lipped smile. "Ms. Jackson," she said sweetly, her voice icy. "How interesting to see you here." I heard you work at a cafe. This must be quite the upgrade. Maya clenched Ethan's hand, anger flaring in her chest. But she kept her voice steady and sharp. Mrs. Thornton, I'm proud of my work. That cafe helped me raise my brother and hold on to my family's dream. But if you think I'm here for Ethan's money, you're mistaken. I'm here because I love him, and he loves me. If that's a problem, I suggest you keep it to yourself. Mrs. Thornton blinked in surprise. Ethan tightened his grip on Maya's hand, his gaze cold. Evelyn, he said, Maya is my fiancée. I expect you to show her the respect she deserves. Mrs. Thornton muttered an apology and walked away. But Maya knew the whispers wouldn't stop. Later, on the car ride home, Maya rested her head on Ethan's shoulder, exhausted. I hate those looks, she murmured. Like I don't belong next to you. Ethan kissed her forehead, voice warm. You belong more than anyone, and we'll face them together. I promise. To push back against the rumors, Maya decided to hold a small press event at the Jackson Soul lot. There, in front of reporters, she stood tall and proud. My name is Maya Jackson, she said, voice unwavering. I grew up in Atlanta. I've worked hard to raise my brother and keep my parents' dream alive. I love Ethan Caldwell not for his wealth, but because he truly sees me. If you think our love is wrong, that's your issue, not ours. Her speech went viral. This time, supportive messages flooded in. People across Atlanta, especially from the Black community, stood with her, calling her the pride of West End. Maya felt a sense of relief. But more than that, she felt powerful, stronger than she'd ever been. Autumn in Atlanta carried a gentle breeze, and golden maple leaves fluttering down the quiet streets of West End. Maya Jackson stood before the lot where Jackson's soul once stood, clutching her mother's old recipe book, her brown eyes shimmering with determination. Maya felt stronger after Ethan Caldwell's heartfelt proposal and powerful press speech. Today, after months of renovation, the restaurant would officially reopen, reborn as Jackson's legacy, named in honor of her parents, James and Angela. She wore a crisp white blouse and black slacks, her curls tied high as she prepared to take her place in the kitchen, just like her mother once did. Beside her, Ethan leaned casually against the doorframe, his blue eyes full of pride. Dressed in a rolled-up navy shirt, he looked relaxed, yet his presence still exuded quiet power. He had supported her every step, from hiring the right contractors and designing the space to ensuring every detail matched her vision. But he always reminded her, "This is your restaurant, Maya. I'm just here to help." That respect only deepened her love for him, though some of her still worried about the judging eyes from his world. The new restaurant was warm and modern. Exposed red brick walls, rustic wood tables, and framed black and white photographs. Her parents were smiling over the stove. A young Marcus holds a tray of biscuits. Holiday gatherings with the whole family. The air was rich with the scent of crispy fried chicken and slow-simmered black-eyed peas, dishes Maya had spent the week perfecting. Jackson's legacy wasn't just a restaurant. Again, it was meant to be a home for the West End community. Maya stood at the entrance as the sun dipped below the horizon, her heart pounding. Marcus, dressed in a clean basketball jersey, hugged her tightly. "You did it, sis. Mom and Dad would be so proud." He grinned, tears glistening. Maya playfully pinched his cheek. "Thanks, kid, but you're on dish duty tonight." Marcus groaned, and they both burst into laughter. Ethan approached, gently taking her hand. "Ready, Chef Jackson?" he asked, eyes gleaming. Maya took a deep breath and nodded. "Ready." She opened the doors, and the first guests flowed in. Old neighbors, Marcus's friends, and former regulars of Jackson's Soul. Laughter, greetings, and the rich aroma of food filled the space. It felt like the restaurant had never closed. Maya worked the kitchen with swift precision, frying chicken, whipping cornbread batter, but her eyes often drifted to the dining room. Marcus darted between tables, taking orders, and Ethan, shockingly, was carrying plates. She chuckled as he clumsily dropped a napkin, only to be patted on the back by an amused customer. "Not bad for a billionaire," an older man shouted, making the whole room laugh. Midway through the evening, Tanya, Maya's old co-worker from Java Jet, walked in with her family. "Girl, I knew you'd make it." Tanya beamed, embracing her. "These black-eyed peas are the soul of Atlanta." Maya touched and served her a plate of free biscuits, just like her mother used to. Then came a surprise twist. Samuel Grant, Atlanta's most respected food critic, entered. Years ago, he had praised Jackson's soul in a glowing article. Now, he sat quietly in a corner, scribbling in his notebook. Maya froze. "If he doesn't like the food," she whispered to Ethan, "I'm done." Ethan squeezed her hand. "You're the best chef I know. Just do what you always do." Maya returned to the kitchen and focused. She prepared a plate just for Mr. Grant. Crispy fried chicken, honey cornbread, and slow-cooked black-eyed peas with smoked bacon, paired with a glass of homemade sweet tea. When she delivered the plate herself, Mr. Grant looked up, unreadable. Ms. Jackson said, "I remember your mother." Angela cooked as if she was telling a story. "Can you do the same?" Maya smiled, confident. "I hope so, sir." "This dish is my family's story." Mr. Grant nodded and began to eat. The restaurant fell into a hushed anticipation as Maya returned to the kitchen, her heart pounding. Ethan stood beside her, whispering, "No matter what he says, your parents would be proud." An hour later, Mr. Grant rose and asked to speak to Maya. In front of the entire room, he declared, "Ms. Jackson, your food is not just good, it is the soul of Atlanta. Jackson's legacy will once again be the heart of West End, just as your mother made it." Applause erupted. Tears streamed down Maya's cheeks as she hugged Mr. Grant, then ran to embrace Ethan and Marcus. Her heart brimmed with joy. As the night wound down and the last guests trickled out, Maya stood at the door, gazing up at the glowing sign. Jackson's legacy. Ethan wrapped his arms around her waist. "You did it, Maya. You did it." She leaned into him, voice trembling. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Thank you, Ethan." He kissed her hair, smiling. "I was just the man behind the scenes. This was your victory." Marcus burst in, wrapping his arms around both of them. "All right, enough with the sappy stuff. Who's doing the dishes?" They all laughed, and at that moment, Maya knew this wasn't just a restaurant reopening. She had rediscovered family, love, and her true self. Spring in Atlanta bloomed in soft shades of pink, with cherry blossoms lining the quiet suburban roads. In a small garden in Chambly, surrounded by white carnations and twinkling string lights, Maya Jackson stood before a mirror in the bridal suite. She wore an elegant white wedding dress, silky fabric hugging her form, adorned with delicate embroidery that accentuated her natural beauty. Her curls were left loose, dotted with tiny flowers, and her brown eyes shimmered with joy and nervous anticipation. Today was her wedding day, her new beginning with Ethan Caldwell, the man who had entered her life through a mistaken hug at the airport and changed everything. She gazed at her reflection, fingers brushing the engagement ring that sparkled on her hand. Her thoughts drifted back to their journey, the awkward first encounter, the heated arguments over coffee, their first kiss in the penthouse, and how Ethan had returned Jackson's soul so she could fulfill her family's dream. She had faced social judgment, cold stares, and her fears. But now, she was here, whole. Ready. The door creaked open. Marcus entered, wearing a sharp navy blue suit, standing taller than usual. "Wow, sis," he breathed. "You look just like Mom did." Maya smiled, tears welling. She pulled him into a hug. "Thank you, little brother. You're the reason I never gave up." He held her tighter, voice cracking. "You deserve this happiness, Maya. And I guess that billionaire guy isn't so bad after all." She laughed, pinching his cheek. "Not so bad? Be careful. You're starting to sound like his fan." Marcus rolled his eyes, but his grin said it all. He took her hand and led her outside, where guests had already gathered. Friends from West End, old Java Jet co-workers, and loyal Jackson's Legacy patrons sat on wooden benches, chatting warmly. There were no judgmental glances today, only love and support. As the music began, Maya walked down the flower-strewn aisle, her hand holding tight to Marcus's. Ethan stood at the end of the path, in a perfectly tailored black suit, his blonde hair gleaming in the sunlight, and his blue eyes locked on hers with unmistakable devotion. As she approached, he took her hand and whispered, "You're more beautiful than any dream I've ever had, Maya." She smiled back, heart pounding. "Not bad yourself, Caldwell." The officiant, a local pastor who had once known her parents, began the ceremony. "We gather here today to witness the love between Maya Jackson and Ethan Caldwell," he said warmly. "They have overcome barriers, faced trials, and found each other truthfully." Maya went first when it came time for vows, her voice trembling but steady. "Ethan, you saw me when I felt invisible. You gave me the strength to dream bigger, forgive, and love. I promise to stand by you, challenge you, and love you daily." Ethan's smile softened, his eyes wet. "Maya, you are the fire that lit up my world. You taught me that love isn't possession. It's building something together. I promise to respect you, protect you, and eat everything you cook, even if I burn the kitchen trying to help." Laughter echoed through the garden. Maya rolled her eyes, beaming. They exchanged rings, and when the officiant declared, "I now pronounce you husband and wife," Ethan pulled Maya into a kiss, sweet and full of promise. Applause erupted. Marcus shouted, "All right, bro-in-law. Don't make my sister blush too hard." Maya laughed, clutching Ethan close as if nothing else mattered. "Batsy." The reception flowed into the evening under the garden lights. Tables were filled with dishes from Jackson's Legacy, crispy fried chicken, honey cornbread, black-eyed peas. Marcus gave a toast, voice thick with emotion. "My sister is the strongest person I know. She raised me, carried the family dream, and now she's found someone who truly loves her. Ethan, you're a great brother-in-law, but don't expect me to call you a billionaire." Laughter burst out again, and Ethan raised his glass, grinning. "I want to be your brother, Marcus, but I'll gladly take that title." Later, as Maya and Ethan danced under the glowing string lights, she rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. She whispered that I used to think I didn't deserve this kind of happiness. Ethan kissed her forehead. "You are my happiness, Maya, and I'll spend my life proving that to you." She smiled. The pain, the loss, the fears of her past, they had all dissolved. She had found her home, not just in Jackson's Legacy, but in Ethan's arms. They stood on a quiet balcony overlooking the glowing garden as night fell. Maya held Ethan's hand. "Thank you for changing my life." Ethan drew her into his arms, voice low. "You changed me first, Maya," with that accidental hug. They laughed softly, and under the moon's silver light, they knew, whatever the future held, they would face it together. Always.